The biggest change is the digital transformation to everything. I mean, that's without question the one that's way out in front. In the beginning, everything was recorded analog and everything was pressed analog and everything was played analog. I mean, it was real simple. It was very raw. As the advance of technology brought on things like Ableton, Native Instruments, propeller heads, these guys have basically developed software that has put an entire studio, at least the programming sophistication of a studio, into a software program. With the advance of Final Scratch and Serato, you've taken what used to be completely limited to vinyl only and made basically a control pattern that controls all of your digital files, which are now MP3s rather than vinyl, because everything's able to be digitized. So this has, if anything else, has completely sped up the creative process. It has taken what used to take someone years to develop as a DJ, someone can develop now in months. What used to take up an entire house of space because of records can now be put in an external hard drive. So it's really sped up the creative process of what the DJ, or how long the DJ takes to evolve and what the DJ can evolve with. It's allowed new technology to be introduced into the DJ booth, where you have loop machines, samples, effects, all these different things that now you can put all within arm's reach. And it's very, very rare nowadays to see a DJ set up without a laptop. There was a time where laptops were totally made fun of right away, just like most things in transition, but now it's completely different. Most of the record distributors have gone away. Most of the record pressing plants have gone away. The few that are left are completely kept afloat by vinyl enthusiasts and diehards, and I think that's great that it isn't gone, but it's probably a 90% reduction from where it was just 15 years ago. So that's as far as performance goes. That's one of the biggest differences. And as far as production goes, you used to have a big giant room full of analog synthesizers. Everything's now become very digital. Now, to some of the high-end guys, it's gone back out again as well. Now there's new people making analog and modular synthesizers again, which has kind of created a wave of activity of who's making what instruments that are making what sounds. So as far as production goes, you still have lots of options, but the digital revolution has really changed everything. The second biggest thing is 15 years ago, there was really only a couple genres, I mean, it was really, techno and house, and you'd have different versions of techno. You'd have, trancey techno or breakbeat techno, but it was kind of techno and house. House, you'd have deep house, you'd have vocal house, and it's interesting now, 15 years later, I don't know that I could sit here and identify all the genres of electronic music. In fact, I do know that I could not identify all the genres of electronic music, because not only are there dozens now, but they're almost starting up every 6 months. There's a new definition of what this person refers to as their sound, and if that definition resonates with something that sounds right to people, it starts to repeat, and next thing you know, you've got a number of people calling it the same thing, and the next thing you know, you've got a new genre, and people are following the pattern of where it started from to kind of create that. And I think that's great, because it's really no different than a tree. It's like you kind of had this tree trunk, and the foundation, the deep foundation, was just basically electronics, and then you get into some 4/4 stuff with vocals, and it kind of came up and branched into this house techno thing, and now those have just continued to branch in all these different directions, but it all comes from the same foundation. But there was a time when everything was very generalized, it was very put in, a few different sounds coming out here and there, and now those few different sounds have not only become different genres, but they've become completely different DJs. So you literally, if you have a dozen DJs, you've got a dozen different types of sounds. So it's really, really spread out. It's become much wider as far as the sonic spectrum goes, and it's also become a much more widely accepted form of music. People have accepted it now as something that you're going to hear in a lot more places than you'd ever think of. I mean, it's in the background of television commercials, elevators, restaurants. I mean, you hear it everywhere, and that is something that just simply did not exist then. I mean, it was relatively rare. You'd find it at parties, on the records, and then when the internet came out, boom, that's when it really started to become visible. But only recently, with a lot of the pop music becoming so digitally processed, only recently has it become almost a standard in any club or social atmosphere.